This week's Music Mania podcast includes something that's sort of my brainchild, which is an old school album battle. Alice Cooper's Constrictor versus Raise Your Fist and Yell. It is the ultimate 80s hair metal Alice albums going head on head. You could also throw Trash in there, but Kane had very limited involvement on Trash, so we're sticking to these two. But Kane, before we get into that, my friend, you released a solo album back in January of 19 called The New Normal. We live in a new normal now. You were sort of ahead of the times, I guess, with that. Great album, I thought. Sydney, I think you'll agree. How's the reception been for the last year and a half on The New Normal?
Well, the thing is, what people freak out about is if you look at the cover, the girl's wearing a spiked virus mask. It's called The New Normal, and the first song was Beginning of the End. And I was talking to Alyssa, Alyssa White Blues about it, and she was like totally freaked out. She said, "Did you do this with the virus and everything?" I said, "No, I have no idea." So I'm like an accidental Nostradamus or something. When I make these records, I'm not expecting, a lot of money or sales from them. It's just the way the nature of the business. And also the fact, you as time goes on, unless you're like a Rolling Stones or an Alice or something like that, your viability is going to just in general assume to just sort of, diminish, like when a band is, in their 20s and they're angry young men or angry young women, they're angry about the system, they're angry about, bringing down the man and society and all the wrongs and bad things that are going on in culture. When you pass 50, you're angry because you have a bad back. You know what I mean? So I don't know how viable some of the, some of the older bands are. So, I was on Frontiers. It was a 1-record deal. Those guys are great. Serafino and Mario are absolutely great. But see, these companies have a very hard-coded business model. It's not like before, like with Geffen. When I was on Geffen, they go out and they just work the room as hard as they can. They have a certain amount of emails they send out. They do a few articles on it, and then that's it. And they hope that their subscription base will respond to the record. Frontiers is very, very 80s. My record isn't very, very 80s. So, it's just very limited response to it. But, the same thing happened to me with the Saints and Sinners record. It came out right when Nirvana hit. So, everybody goes, "Oh, it was an underrated record." Well, times change, music changes, and I just enjoy recording the stuff and having, whoever listens to it, get into it. So, yeah.
Well, I thought it was tremendous, Sydney. I'm sure you'll agree. I really loved it. It was very progressive, I thought. And yeah, it was a lot. It was heavy and kind of zigged when we thought it might zag. That's a good thing. So getting into where we're at here, this album battle, as we start, Alice Cooper, of course, took a 3-year hiatus after the release of Dada. Kane, you get involved, around 1985? You are co-writing a lot of these songs. Beau Hill produces Constrictor as we get started here. Just talk about kind of your involvement, how you got involved, and sort of the writing process for Constrictor here.
Well, the story was a publisher sent my stuff to Bob Ezrin. So they suddenly contacted me out of the blue. It was kind of a odd phone call, "Hi, Alice Cooper would like to meet you," So I was living in New York, and I said, "Wow, that'd be really cool." So I go to Shep Gordon's management company in Manhattan. It's called Alive, and I walk in there, and it's just history is everywhere. Alice and Shep changed culture internationally. They changed the world with what they did. They broke so many barriers and they influenced everybody, I think. And they will say that as well. Not some of them have passed away, but I mean I think they influenced Kiss and David Bowie and bands like that. And there's a lot of debate on who did what first, but so I walk in there, and then one of the things I've said before is I had to sit with Ezrin first. So I walk into this big office. There's a big picture window, and you can see the skyline of Manhattan, and Ezrin's sitting there, in front of the window, and his seat is really high, and my seat is like a lawn chair. I mean, I'm like one of the Munchkins, from Wizard of Oz, just like a power thing. And he says, "Kane, you're 50% of a great writing team." So I said, "All right, well, there you go. Now I know who I am." So I go in and I meet Alice and everybody, and Alice and I became best friends within 10 minutes. It's inexplicable. We both talk about it. We don't understand why. So that was a huge part of it. The other part was, I didn't do any drugs. I didn't do any of that stuff. Alice was coming out of a very rough rehab. So that made me sort of attractive. And then when we started writing, they loved our stuff. So, the rest is kind of history.
Well, Raise Your Fist and Yell then is released almost a year later to the day, September 5th, 1987. So I've always considered these sister albums. There's 10 tracks on each, which is why it makes for a great comparison here. For a lot of us, me included, this was sort of my indoctrination to Alice Cooper. I was a kid in the 80s watching Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, and the music just really stood out. It's really the reason I got into hard rock music. I had to go back, of course, and discover this whole new world of Alice and the albums before. But Sydney,
Sure.
just kind of talk about how you came about sort of these were you more into the older Alice stuff, or was this kind of some of your indoctrination into Alice as well, this 80s stuff?
Yeah, so primarily for me, I got really big into the 70s stuff first. That's just because what I grew up listening to. So my parents would put on The School's Out and the No More Mr. Nice Guy. That was kind of how I got into Alice. And then I took it upon myself to start an Alice obsession, and that, kind of delved into the deeper albums and, his entire discography. So I discovered Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell. And I remember when I heard Constrictor, I think I talked about this one, I guess, on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but I had heard he's back, and it shot to the top 5 my favorite Alice songs. And
oh, wow.
That was just kind of a life-changing moment when I heard that song. I love that album. I might be a little biased as we continue on with all of this as to what my favorite is. I might both be a little bit biased. But I definitely discovered that in my journey of loving Alice, and it's right up there, one of my favorites.
Well,
it's interesting, Sydney, because the first version of that song was very heavy. It was, he crawled out of his hole just to rock and roll, and we just got into this heavy guitar stuff and everything. And the record company wanted something that might hit the radio a little easier. So we got the guy who wrote Like a Virgin to write with us. And that's complete. You can hear it, even that opening keyboard part, you can hear the influence there. So, and my approach with the guitar solo was to just do something kind of, slithering in and out of the melody and everything. And that's how that song sort of evolved. But we ended up releasing the other version in the name of a song called Trick Bag, which I think is also on Constrictor. I'm not sure. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely is. And we're going to get to that. Of course, a lot of people's, the unveiling of this new era of Alice Cooper with Kane Roberts, this guy that looks like Rambo on guitar, which is you, Kane. And it happened on the Nightmare Returns on Halloween night in Detroit. And it was an MTV concert and featured a lot of the songs from the upcoming album. And as we get into it now, we're going to get into the song-by-song comparisons. And so, Kane, this will take you back a little bit, and we can fill in the gaps on anything that you might
ask me anything. Ask
absolutely
away.
Well, our first song, 2 songs that we got to look at here, this is extremely difficult because both albums have tremendous lead-offs. We have Teenage Frankenstein, to me the definitive song of the Nightmare Returns era. Thunderous opening riff, killer chorus, still played to this day, just on last summer's tour, and featured on the Jason Lives soundtrack. Taking on Freedom, amazing opening, we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, and great lyrics. So we'll start with you, Sydney. Teenage Frankenstein versus Freedom. Which song do you have ruling the day here?
I'm going to go with Teenage Frankenstein. We're going to go lead off right with Constrictor. And I think that it's mostly just because, I don't know, it's one of those songs that I heard and it was just I was a teenager and I was listening to it like a Teenage Frankenstein type thing. It really depends on the day. I love Freedom as well. It's a great start to an album, but my heart goes with Teenage Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Kane, do you have a preference here? That opening riff?
The way I'm looking at it is just from my experience. Okay, so an incredible experience was meeting Alice Cooper. And and then suddenly being in the studio with him and writing and everything. So all of that was extremely exciting. But wait, once we did that first tour, as a musician, a professional musician, just in terms of my guitar playing, my whole perception of the business, we got out of the studio and we off the tour, and we hit the ground running in the studio. And you could really feel it on every song. I mean, Kip Winger and Ken Mary and everybody was just kicking ass, you know. So just as an experience musically, I like Freedom a little bit more, but Teenage Frankenstein has a really sacred place in my heart. But just in terms of the impact and the drive and sort of the thrust of the music, I would say maybe Freedom is a little bit my favorite.
Ah, there we go. I'm going to go with a Teenage Frankenstein as well. The scene in Jason Lives with the guy driving the motorhome and Jason stabbing him in the head as the song is blaring, that just stands out to me. And Teenage Frankenstein wins for me. Kane, great. I love the perspective there. And Raise Your Fist and Yells. Freedom wins the day for Kane there. As we move on, we got Give It Up from Constrictor versus Lock Me Up. See, this is what I mean about these albums being sister albums. You have these tremendous opening tracks, and then it gives way to a 3-song second track, Give It Up versus Lock Me Up, and they kind of remind me of each other. Give It Up as more poppy. You've got your sugar, you've got your spice, you've got a kitten. Now, isn't that nice? Kane, I don't know if that's a lyric of yours, but I absolutely love that. It sounds like something from
Alice. That's Alice.
It sounds like something from like an 80s beach movie montage scene, the song does. Give It Up. And Lock Me Up, I think is tremendous. One of the most underrated songs off Raise Your Fist. Sydney, we'll start with you. Give It Up versus Lock Me Up.
I think for this one, I'm gonna have to go with Lock Me Up, and I love the more 80s stuff like on Constrictor, but I do think that this was like a little bit more of a heavier track. I think Raise Your Fist and Yell was more just a heavier album in terms of instrumentation and things like that. So I think I would have to go with Lock Me Up on this one.
Kane, what about you?
Give It Up. It was very strange. We actually did a version that Bob Casale from Devo produced, and it really sounded like a Devo song with Alice Cooper singing. It's just really funny. So we ended up doing a different approach, and that's the one that you hear on the Constrictor record. I would have to go with Lock Me Up as well. I think. I really like my guitar solo on that. It's all about me. No, kidding. And also the experience of writing it. I mean, Alice, his lyrics just pour out of him. He's one of those guys. If you catch him on the right moment, the lyrics are going to be amazing. So this was one of those for me. That one, and I know you're going to talk about it later, but Prince of Darkness was a real eye opener in terms of his blinding skills. So.
Absolutely. I agree with you guys. Lock Me Up. It's very anthemic. It's a dashboard banger as an intro. I love that. Chorus is great. You're right. Solo. I don't know who played on that, but it was a great solo. Kane, it was you. And it was tremendous. So yeah, I'm going to go with Lock Me Up as well. Really underrated song from there. So that brings us to Thrill My Gorilla versus Give the Radio Back. Thrill My Gorilla is certainly a bit on the cheesy side lyrically. Where were you when the monkey hit the fan? Right?
That was Alice, yeah.
Alice has always had this like tongue-in-cheek sense of humor dating all the way back, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
This song never quite did it for me. It was kind of like more of a filler track. Sydney, starting with you, do you have a preference here? Thrill My Gorilla versus Give the Radio Back?
It's really hard because part of me wants to go with Throw My Gorilla just because of what it is. It's just songs. I remember I heard it and I was like, it's so 80s and cheesy, but it's so damn good. But I really do love Give the Radio Back. I think between the two, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Give the Radio Back. But I do have to say that a part of my heart definitely holds Throw My Gorilla very dear.
Kane, what about you?
It's interesting. Both of those songs seem to hold the same slot in terms of significance on the record. I mean, I know what you mean about filler. We certainly wasn't our intention going into it. We thought, the sort of humorous aspect that's in both of them I think Give the Radio Back for me as well. Yeah.
Well, Kane, this is so far a clean sweep for you. You've got the first three songs from Raise Your Fist are winning out for you. I do agree. I'm going to go with Give the Radio Back here. I think it's a really underrated song. I like the heaviness. It's more of a heavy track. Great chorus. Give the radio
Yeah.
back to the maniac. I did that. It's great stuff.
You know, and at that point, you know, Beau Hill, he was sort of discovering Alice's ability. So, you know, during Thrill My Gorilla, and then when we hit Michael Wagner, one of his specialties is vocals, and you can hear near the end of that song, Alice is really doing some crazy yelling and stuff like that. It was amazing. It reminded me of Public Animal #9, you know. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think Alice's performance on it is pretty off the chain. So I think that's why I agree with you guys.
And not only that, but like the guitar just soars over the top of this. And I always like solos where the solo like plays over a rhythm part, and that happens here, and I love that.
Kind of floats over it a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's always a good recipe to me.
It depends on the drug that I was on at that time. So, I can't remember. I'm joking.
No judgment.
Right.
That brings us to Life and Death of the Party versus Step on You. I always thought Life and Death had a memorable intro, and then it goes kind of mid-tempo. Great vocals on Life and Death, and
absolutely, yeah.
And Step on You has a monster intro too, though. Sydney, you're going to have to sort of, figure this out because I'm still kind of torn. Yeah, I'm kind of torn here, Sydney.
I'm going to go with Life and Death of the Party because the chorus of that song gets stuck in my head when I haven't heard it for months. I'll wake up today, I'll be like, Life in the Party.
Yeah.
And like the bridge to that one is also like just super memorable, super catchy. Just that entire song is probably one of my favorites off of Constrictor. So definitely a tough choice, but I have to go with Life and Death.
Yeah, I agree with Sydney. The Alice's performance, the melodies and stuff, it's very atmospheric, very moody, very kind of a perfect deal in terms. It was the best thing. Alice and I have both talked about this. Alice, it's tough to pin Alice down and say, what's your favorite? He's not that type of a guy, but he thinks Life and Death is one of the best songs off of Constrictor as well. Step on You, the guitar solo I did I had a silver dollar, and I detuned my low E string way down, so it was just hanging there. So if you listen to it, what I was trying to do was create kind of this rusted old robot, stepping on everybody and everything. So, that I love that aspect of it. I love the creativity of Step on You, but Life and Death is a better song to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Life and Death on this one. I agree with Sydney that there's something about I'll just start singing that chorus at times, and I don't really know why. You can ask some people.
Well, Alice singing, he just came up with it.
Yeah.
You're the life and the death of the party. You've got my heart right by the throat. I just thought amazing.
It's so catchy. Just gets you. Like from the very first time I heard that, it was just like I don't even need to hear it more than like one time which is what you want from a song.
Yes.
Like that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
And not have to think too much about singing along or whatever,
Yep.
You're right. And so my vote's Life and Death, but the argument I would make for Step on You my favorite part is that the second verse adds an extra guitar part.
Sure.
And that's awesome. Again, so I guess I delve into these guitar parts here, Kane, because you were such an integral part of the band at this time, and I love.
Yeah, well, we wanted to break out of the normal pattern of the songs, and Alice was open to that, so it was really good.
Well, that brings us to Simple Disobedience versus Not That Kind of Love. I'd say these are two songs that are both pretty unheralded. You don't, these are not songs that get played live and haven't since this era. So this is kind of, a gray area here when it comes to these songs as we get to this point in the album. Sydney, we'll start with you. Which one did you go with here?
I'm going to go with Simple Disobedience. I think it's just for Constrictor. Obviously, like we said, Constrictor had more of a little bit of like a synth vibe to it. You know, was a little bit on a, I don't want to say maybe poppy. It's a little bit too much of a word, but you know, it was on that side of the 80s and whatnot, the 80s metal. But Simple Disobedience was always one song I feel like off of that record that was very like, you know, in your face, kind of heavier for that record. And one of my favorites. So I'm gonna go with Simple Disobedience.
Yeah, that was written for a project that never took place. It was supposed to be a movie, kind of like like Tommy. You know, it was going to have Def Leppard and Twisted Sister, everybody of that day. And the thing that killed the project was the drummer in Def Leppard's accident, because they were kind of they were sort of the nexus of the whole project. So we wrote that song because it was against some tyrannical leader and stuff like that, Simple Disobedience. And, you know, we wrote it. That was actually one of the first things we did when I met Alice. We went up to upstate New York, rented a hotel, and got a studio. And we actually recorded. That was one of the very, very first songs, maybe within 2 weeks of meeting him. And the song survived. And so I think in terms of the writing and the lyrics, once again, I'd have to agree with Sydney on this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually go with Not That Kind of Love. I'm going to deviate here. I just thought it had a little bit better of a chorus, and the lyrics, this has Alice written all over it. I like you dirty when your hair is a mess.
Yeah.
That's Alice written all over it, and I love that.
Yeah, nobody else wrote that but Mr. Cooper himself. He's the only one.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of breaking the trends here. I'm going with Not That Kind of Love. Kane, we can't seem to agree on a Constrictor song here. You have all Raise Your Fist and Yell, then you deviate here, and now I'm going back to Raise Your Fist. That's what's great about
once
this.
Again, it's the drug issue. I'm very confused.
No judgment. No, absolutely. So this brings us to something that I think is going to be a bit controversial here. I'm just going to go ahead and go out with my pick. It's The World Needs Guts versus Prince of Darkness. Kane, you're going to kill me for this one, but I've got The World Needs Guts. I love this song. It's the first song that was played live on The Nightmare Returns from Constrictor. I just remember those lyrics, and I remember that chorus. It was just like, wow, like kind of a gory song, a horror movie song written all over it. Like, I love The World Needs Guts. Prince of Darkness is so good, but by a hair, I've got The World Needs Guts. Sydney, where are you going?
I'm gonna go The World Needs Guts too.
Wow. See?
It's just one of those songs that, like, whenever I hear it, it just gets me like pumped up. It's like, yeah, like nobody can stop me from doing anything. It's like one of those songs. And I loved, and I'm sure you'll agree, Kane, when Alice did this on he did it, I think, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Nita Strauss.
Nita just always blows my mind. Yeah, she's so passionate and so into it. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah,
she kills that. She killed your part. I remember she posted a video before they even did it, and she was like, you know, we're doing an '80s song, and normally the diehards could really, you know, tell the exact part without any of, you know, the other instruments or whatever. And she kills your parts like note for note. So
I know
it was cool to see that. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with The World Needs Guts. It's one of my faves.
Okay, Prince of Darkness is tremendous too. And did Kip Winger co-write this one?
Yeah, well, he wrote the harpsichord part. I think on Gale. I'm not sure I can't remember if he wrote on Prince of Darkness, but I remember sitting. We were somewhere in New York. We'd gotten off tour, and Alice was sitting on a couch eating Cheetos, and I had, you know, headphones, and I was trying to get the music together. And within 15 minutes, he wrote the lyrics to Prince of Darkness. And if you look at those lyrics, they're absolutely brilliant. And so, and you know, he told me, you know, he thought my solo on that was one of his favorites. There's certain aspects of that song that I'm actually over the moon about, and certain ones that, you know, I'm not crazy about. And then when I think of The World Needs Guts, I mean, geez, what a dose of energy that was live. I mean, I think that was one of the sort of transitional songs on that first tour, because as the night went on, Alice would become more that character than the guy I was hanging out with on the bus. And I'm being honest. So sometimes I look over at him. It wasn't the same guy. So, but I'm going to go with Prince of Darkness because, I just think, the song sort of creates a world unto itself, even in that middle interlude before the solo and everything. It's a perfect kickoff to the trilogy that we put together. So I like that song a little better.
I love what you have to say about the lyrics and Alice, being such an amazing lyricist, because I've been saying it for years, but his lyrics have always just been like such a solid point in all of his music. From the very first, album that the Alice Cooper group released all the way until, Paranormal that came out in 2017, his lyrics have always just been such a staple of his music. And it's crazy to hear because, I feel like I've heard this about him as well, like that it just comes to him so fast. He can write these lyrics in like minutes.
Yeah.
Just flows.
I think sometimes too, if I was sitting with him, I had a big hand in the lyrics for Roses on White Lace, but there were often times where I was sitting with him and writing, and I felt he'd probably do better if I wasn't sitting here. You know what I mean? So, he's one of those guys that sort of it's a shock and awe kind of a thing. It's really funny. Shep was telling me back in the day, they did a show. Alice Cooper did a show at the Whiskey. It was a long time ago, and Led Zeppelin opened for him, and nobody knew who they were. There were less than 200 people there. And Shep said when Alice went on, the entire club emptied out. Everybody left. And Shep said, if somebody can clear out a club this fast, I think they're going to be famous. So he signed him. So it's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love the perspective there. That's going to bring us to, we talked about how the man behind the mask sort of was a heavier version. There's a demo of that available. You can check it out on YouTube. That become Trick Bag sort of took on what the skeleton of that song and what it became. And that was the original arrangement. So Trick Bag versus Time to Kill. It's pretty simple for me on this. I think Trick Bag is just a little more memorable. I don't know. It's got another heavy intro with that little shredding part at the start. I'm a shred guitar aficionado, so Kane, you're right in my wheelhouse here. I just think Trick Bag's a little more memorable. What say you, Sydney?
I'm going to go with Trick Bag as well. I'm a little Constrictor heavy at the moment.
A little Constrictor heavy there, Sydney. Come on.
But Trick Bag, I just feel like, again, kind of like similar to Life and Death of the Party, just has like a chorus that's very memorable, like you said.
Yeah.
It's very just, it comes to my mind immediately. It's one of the more memorable like choruses, I think, on Constrictor as a whole. Debatable if it's like one of my favorites, but the chorus itself is just very memorable, kind of gets stuck in your head. So I think I'm definitely going to go with Trick Bag.
And the solo's amazing. The solo on Trick Bag's maybe the best solo on any of the two albums.
Oh, geez. Thank you. Thank you. I don't remember what I played, but thank you.
It was a lot of this.
Yeah, no. So, but that's a tough one for me. I think I'm going to go with Trick Bag. I think I'm good. There's certain aspects of Time to Kill that I think were a little, I worked a lot with this one script writer named Larry Gross. He wrote 48 Hours and some other big films. And he said, whenever you're creating, you have to keep Mr. Mediocre away. He's always sitting there going, hey, why don't you just do that? And there's a couple of moments there where I listened to that song and I wonder if Mr. Mediocre kind of took over the day a little bit. So, but, I still love the song, still listen to it. It's very powerful. And of course, I'll never say Alice did anything but perform miraculously. So, yeah, but Trick Bag.
Well, that's a unanimous one. And that is going to move us on to one that I don't think is going to be unanimous. Crawlin' versus Chop, Chop, Chop. I'll just say Chop, Chop, Chop is sort of a fan favorite. And fans always clamor to be played live. Some people call me the creeper because they don't know my name or face. I always love that lyric. But Crawlin' is a little underrated for me. It's just, I like Crawlin'
It has
a lot.
a little bit of the Life and Death of the Party feel.
It does.
Yeah,
that's a good point. It does have that. And so Crawlin's my winner here. I don't know if anyone's going to agree with me, but it's a hill I'll die on today, I guess.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to go with Chop Chop Chop. I think
Mm.
I think just like we've been talking about, I feel like Raise Your Fist and Yell is more of a heavier record, but the lyrics I feel like of Chop 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 are more just like iconic Alice, like the blood splatter and the creepy
Yeah,
kind of vibe that he has in that song.
yeah,
It's just one of those just iconic like lyrical pieces on that record that I feel like kind of
right.
like Alice Cooper just represents who he kind of was as an artist at that time.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I think I'm gonna go Chop Chop Chop.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that one. Um, one of the things about that tour with Raise Your Fist, we got banned in certain areas. They tried to ban us from England. There were armed military there when we played in Munich. Just because if Alice slit the girl's throat, the prostitute's throat, they were going to stop the show. And so. I think that song, Chop Chop Chop, Engine of Destruction. There was a guy that worked with Alice that passed away. His name was Brian, and he was such an Alice Cooper fanatic, and that song blew his mind, off of Freedom, and I know why. It's got a real sort of Alice Cooper, bloody, gory, kind of heavy essence to it, and I think we captured it, throughout the whole thing. So yeah. Chop Chop Chop.
That's going to go. I think a lot of people. I would be in the heavy minority on that. And I would. That's
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
no problem.
Crawling is in that realm of life and death. I think a little bit.
Yeah.
Still a really beautiful song. I think it was. And Alice has like a sort of romantic side to him. I think Sydney will agree. So, and I think he conveys that really well in that song.
Well, that moves us to Great American Success Story versus Gail. I'll be honest, I think Alice is a very, very underrated ballad writer, and that kind of speaks to what you were just talking about the romantic side of Alice. We've heard songs like It's Only My Heart Talking and Only Women Bleed, and so many more. Gail is one that I've never been a huge fan of. I think Great American Success Story follows that 80s great, like that chorus, back to school. I also love the lyric. This is Alice again. I got an A in the study of female anatomy. He's staring at her legs, but he's thinking about her face.
Yeah.
That is classic. And this is like a summer day with the windows down, sing along. Great American Success Story is going to take it for me.
I think I'm going to go with Gail. And I think I'm going to go with Gail because I've always loved in Alice's work that he has like just created characters throughout the entirety of his career.
Yeah.
Old Ethel, Steven, he's always just been kind of creating characters and stories behind them. And like you said, Clint, he's just a very underestimated and underrated ballad writer. I've been saying this for years. He can write ballads. I think he's one of the best probably in the like classic original artists of the 70s and whatnot. You look at albums like From the Inside, which is my favorite, the ballads on that record. And I probably will always lean towards his ballads the most, although I love his heavier tracks. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with Gail.
Yeah. Gail for me as well. It was one of those things too, while we were writing, Alice and I were imagining sort of what would happen on stage, the drama that would happen around it. So, and I thought Kip, played and wrote an incredible keyboard part. So, yeah, I'm gonna say Gail.
Yeah, a lot of people, know, of course, that Kip Winger was, in the band at this time from 86 to 87 before forming Winger. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but how much did Kip write on these two? I know we'd mentioned one earlier. So
it wasn't that much. Not for any critical or aesthetic reason. Alice and I while we were on tour would actually go to studios in different cities and write and record the song. So sort of the scheduling of that, so he and I were attached at the hip, constantly. So it didn't X people out. Like, I don't want to write with him or whatever. It just happened that way. The thing about it too is everybody in the band for Freedom influenced the writing. They influenced the approach, because there wasn't anything that I could play or demand of them that they couldn't do, and far beyond that. So, I mean, if you listen to, for example, a song that's coming up, I'm sure is "Roses on White Lace." You listen to the drums on that. There's one section there, although it ended up being flanged, so you can't really make it out. But Ken, Mary, and I play 64th notes on this run, and we do it exactly. And it was literally, I think, 1 or 2 takes. We got it so tight. So, and when you have that sort of ability to write and have the band play it that way, and you spend night after night playing with them, I have to say they have a hand in all the songs. But in terms of actual writing, I think that was pretty much it for Kip.
Well, this leads us to me, one of the more difficult comparisons I'll ever have to do, not just songs or on an album, but in my life at all, because we've got He's Back, the man behind the mask, versus Roses on White Lace. And this is going to go against every conventional wisdom I have, because He's Back is one of my earliest memories of hard rock music. I used to watch the movie Jason Lives all the time. I have a Jason tattoo.
Yeah. Awesome.
I won't show it to you. It's kind of far down here. And the shirt gives you all you need to know. But this song might be solely responsible for my kind of dive into rock journalism. It's sort of planted the seeds for everything that kind of came after it for me. So I love that. That being said, Roses on White Lace is just killer. It's a top 5 Alice song for me. The intro and guitar arrangement it's just brutal. This one's a top 5 Alice Cooper song for me. I go with Roses on White Lace, which is very difficult to do because, again, He's Back is such an influence on me, and I'm a huge fan of the song as well. But, Sydney, I think you're going to go the other way here if I had to guess. Just predicting.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm going to go He's Back because, I don't know, it's just, like I said, I heard that song, and it's definitely, that's in my top 5 favorite Alice songs. I remember the first time I heard that, and the guitar part going into, the last chorus was just so memorable and catchy to me, and just that entire song was just I don't know, just solidified the Alice 80s album journey kind of thing. So I'm gonna go with He's Back, top 5 for me. But Roses on White Lace is just it's so good. It's really hard to have to pick one over the other. I love the metaphor, blood drops look like roses on white lace. That's who thought of that? It's
who thought of that?
I would have never thought of that. Probably, Alice Cooper. But I'm going to have to go with He's Back just because it has such a really special place in my heart.
Yeah, that was actually my idea for those lyrics. I mean, 99.9% of all the genius was Alice, but I got to sneak in that line on one song. So, I'm going to go with with Roses because it just sort of represented a lot about that album. That's why we had the Prince of Darkness, Gale, Chop Chop Chop, and those songs where they're sort of lined up, because it felt like we were going to create this, like I said before, true culture of violence on stage. So I'm going to go with that song, and it also was kind of indicative of how off the chain the band was. I mean, if you listen to it, there's a lot of progressive music in it too as well. So I'm going to go with that. And I totally understand what you're saying, Sydney, because that's the He's Back has a kind of an amazing chorus. It's uplifting, and but Roses for me definitely.
Sydney made a great point about the guitar solo on He's Back. Guitar solos are memorable for different reasons, but there's very few that you can actually just think of off the top of your head and just think about and how it goes.
You can hear it.
Almost sing along with it. The He's Back does have that. This one was so hard for me, guys. This was all very difficult because I'm such a fan of both of these albums. So Kane, his winner here is Raise Your Fist and Yell. Sydney and I, by the thinnest of margins, have Constrictor. It's all a matter of personal taste. It's been but the real question is, Sydney and I have for you here. We talked about this the last time she was on the podcast.
Yes.
Hard Rock Summer does not appear on either album, and it should. And it's a crime against humanity that it's not on. Why? Where's Hard Rock Summer? It's one of my favorite songs of the decade.
We wrote that for a movie. I can't remember the Back to School. Yeah, it was with Roddy Dangerfield. That was what the song was written for. And I don't know if it made it to the film. It's really funny. If you listen to the rhythm section, if you listen to the guitar and the performances and even the lyrics, rock and roll vagabond and all that stuff, I thought it was an amazing song. It just didn't get picked up for any of the records. That's all that happened. So it's just sitting out there somewhere on YouTube, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it was on the Life and Crimes of Alice Cooper box set. I believe in 1999 it was released, but it is on YouTube. It's just, to me, a song that it should have found its way onto one of the two albums, especially since
I think it appears on Jason on the radio. I think
it does.
that movie. Yeah, I think it's on the radio when they're riding their car, trying to get away from somebody or something.
Yeah, it is on there. Thank goodness it is at least available for us to enjoy now. But guys, I'll tell you what, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks to Kane. We've had you on our show 2 other times before, and this is we want to do kind of something special this time. Sydney, you're tremendous as always. I'm so glad we've been able to partner up and have a lot of fun here talking some I don't think we've talked about any band but Alice Cooper in like the 2 hours we've spoken on Zoom.
That seems to just be the theme with me.
I'm glad I finally got to meet Sydney. Jeez, we've been talking back and forth. Yeah.
Well, now, Kane, you have Zoom capabilities now. We forced you into this, so now you can do interviews this way. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I'm not good at it, obviously, but I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, guys, it's been a blast. Thank you so much. Constrictor.
Yeah, thank you.
Constrictor wins by votes of 2-1. Sorry, Kane, we've outvoted you here.
I know I got voted out. I can't believe it.
Although you played on the albums.
Your own records.
Yeah, you got voted off your own records. It's okay, no problem. Hey, guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We'll have to do it again sometime, and we appreciate it. Kane, take her easy, stay safe, and stay healthy, my friend. Sydney, you do the same. We'll catch up again soon.
Awesome.
All right,
man.
Thank you, guys. So in addition to our show, I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I'm at the gym almost every day. So having a tremendous pair of earbuds is extremely important to me. So whether you're working from home or working on your fitness, you want what you're listening to be what you're listening to, not what your roommates, neighbors, significant other, or children are listening to. Everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. But before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. You already know Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and that they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands that you know. Their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best ones yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise-isolating fit. Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable, perfect for conference calls or binging podcasts. I'll tell you, the long battery life and perfect fit has made this a game changer for me in the gym. Unlike some of your other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet, with no dangling wires or stems to distract anyone during video calls. You've heard me talk about how the company was founded by Ray J, and now celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, Melissa Etheridge, Brandy, and J.R. Smith are obsessed with Raycons. Pick up a pair and see what all the hype is about. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. So get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/musicmania. That's buyraycon.com/musicmania for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. That's buyraycon.com/musicmania.